which of course brings us to today's topic, which is about mindsets. Why does that keep happening? Today we got an hour. We're recording. The purpose is to explore meeting mindsets. And our responsible parties today are Eileen and Marta. Hi, Donne. Is it Donne? Is that right?
It's Donne.
Donne, nice. Welcome.
Great.
Yes. All right, ladies, all yours. And do you want me to put your question in the chat? Is it time?
Yes.
It is time. Yes, thank you. So welcome, John and Louis and Donne. Yeah, and I think we may have some more people joining us. So this question came up in another conversation, another session that Meeting Innovation Community was doing, and Elise said, hey, why don't you think about exploring this a little bit and doing a session on it? So that's how this session came about. And so Marta and I have been working together for several weeks now, looking at this and coming up with our thoughts and ideas, and really want to engage in a conversation, exercise and conversation with you about meeting mindsets. So as we get started today, let's just take a moment and respond to the question in the chat there. What's something you're feeling optimistic about in your life right now?
Smile. Very good. Very nice.
Louis says your grandsons. How many do you have, Louis? 2?
So you can unmute yourself.
You're on mute, Louis. Yeah.
Yes. Let's have a conversation.
Sorry, I was saying 2.5.
Oh, it's gonna come.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, so
A
now,
new
and how old are
business
they?
starting in July. Very good. All right.
Yeah, nice.
Zumba.
All right.
I attempted
Elise
not
is
to
learning
start to learn the
Zumba.
moves. Great.
Wait, can you do the shimmy with your shoulders? Like I have not figured out this. I can't. Oh, she can't. How do you do that? Like I need somebody to teach me that.
You go back and forth, but then you go faster.
I don't know, it doesn't work for
In
me.
Zumba?
It works. You can do it. Everybody can do it.
So I walk around the house practicing that. That would be high on my optimism list if I could learn to shimmy my shoulders.
I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people. You could probably do
Yeah.
it. Ooh.
Yeah. John started
college football flair. Ooh.
Honey, where does your son play football?
He's at Bucknell University.
Oh,
It's in the middle of,
Pennsylvania.
literally the middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Do y'all live near there?
No, we do not. We live right outside of DC. So it's not far.
Oh, okay.
It's just far enough.
Yeah.
Okay. I can start sharing my screen maybe.
Okay. I just want to check with John. What kind of business are you starting?
Gourmet mushrooms.
Now, is that
we had it with mushrooms today?
Growing gourmet mushrooms, yeah. So
we were literally talking about those.
My son's been doing it for 4 or 5 years, in a very, very small scale, and so we're going to quadruple his output, or the output of the company, using these things called farm boxes, which are self-contained grow spaces in shipping containers. So,
wow. Okay.
Great.
Awesome.
Hopefully by September, we'll be growing 400 pounds a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Edible ones. Wait. Marta's quote for us earlier about mushrooms was, all mushrooms are edible and some only one time.
That's right. Right.
We're hoping that your gourmet mushrooms have more are good for more than one eating.
We have tested all of them, and so we know exactly what the results are. So
y'all are still here.
Excellent.
So
we're still here.
Awesome.
Hi, Susan.
Awesome. Welcome, Susan. So good. So I shared a few moments ago about what we were looking at here in the mindsets, and we asked the question about feeling optimistic, right? Because when we just, that impacts our mindset when we're feeling like optimistic about something or pessimistic about something. And it will link to some of the work that we're doing today. So Marta, move us along
Can't
here.
you see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. This screen in which I move my mouse right now. All right. All right. Okay. So we're on this. Hello. This is our introduction. So Eileen was telling us how it started and how we came to this idea to set this conversation in this way. So I'm going to share the Miro link for you to get into the board.
Yeah. And y'all should be able to access the Miro board. Okay, Elise is there. Yeah. Okay, I see other people there too. Good.
All right.
All right.
So this is the conversation we want to be having. What's the impact of the mindset of a leader for the outcome of the meeting? That was the question that we had to start with this, and we want to have a conversation with you. So the first thing that we're going to start with is to gather all the regular meetings you lead or participate in. To have, what are the meetings you participate?
Yeah, so we want you to, yeah. Yeah, so we want you to take the sticky notes. Go ahead, Marta.
Yeah. If you're here on Miro, you can take the sticky notes and click on them, click a second time and write something. You also can take new sticky notes on the left side. You have a toolbar, and there you can have more sticky notes and just write whatever. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to focus on this activity. Write regular meetings you lead or participate in.
And if you're in a situation where maybe you don't have a lot of meetings yourself, based on your business structure, if you think about some of your clients, what kind of meetings have you heard that they have on a regular basis?
All right, a great amount of meetings that you all have. Very nice. So let's see in these meetings, how can we sort these meetings? On the next frame, we want you to place those meetings on this 2x2 grid, depending on your level of engagement and perceived value. So we have here, how valuable do I think this meeting is? High and low, and what is my readiness for participation? So take your meetings and set them somewhere in this grid.
Okay. So it looks like we've got meetings at various places on the board, and in terms of engagement level, high and low engagement, and perceived high and low value of the meeting. So now what we want to do is take this to the next level and kind of look below that for those meetings that you put on there. We want you to create some new sticky notes now about what is it about those meetings that has you put it in that quadrant of the grid. So for example, we have some things on this next grid here in terms of my engagement, right? I might have high engagement and high value because I really like the people in the meeting, or I'm really curious about this meeting. I might have low engagement. I might be in a meeting that seems valuable, but it's just that particular meeting happens too early in the morning for me. So we want you to create another set of stickies not necessarily a one-to-one correlation of the meetings you have, but we want you to start thinking about what are some of the factors that influence what would have you list your meetings in these different quadrants. Is that clear, the request? Yeah, okay. And you have to grab sticky notes from the annotate bar on the left side of your screen.
I'm going to give the game 3 minutes for this.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you for the timer, Marta. Yeah, so let's just take a moment and look at some of the things on here. So in the potential high engagement but lower value, the value is not clear, or the meeting, I may perceive the meeting as boring. The meeting may feel like propaganda. I feel that other folks are ding dongs. I like that. Or it's just not me. There's nothing in the meeting that's meeting my needs. Right. Help me understand these kind of bluish purple ones on the left here. Like achievability of the objective or clarity of the objective. These are on the low.
No, I'm not easy. It's not easy for me to place these sticky notes. I don't know. But for me, because it's not linked to the readiness for participation, it's not linked for me for the value of the meeting. It's much more about my engagement within the meeting. So if the objective is not clear, if the objective is totally stupid, or if there are no rules for the meeting, I'm sure that I won't be engaged. I need to be motivated, or I don't know how to express that correctly, but to be an actor.
You need to understand it has to be clear, the objective and the modalities and ground rules. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
So could
even
you
I
write
appreciate
some high clarity of the objective, and where would it be placed then?
It's critical for me.
Mhm.
Of course, it's critical.
it's
And you know, there is what I call the magic question. What do you expect from me? Which is really the question that we should ask for any meeting. And if the answer is not clear, so then I won't be, probably I will skip the meeting, or I won't be engaged.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you, Liz.
Liz, that's
We've
really
got
helpful
some-
for that. I'm really connecting to that because I oversee a group of schools, and I meet with principals once a week, and I put on here that it feels like there is a lot of redundancy in our conversations. I mean, we have great relationships and it's all great, but it's like sometimes I feel a little guilty, like I'm wasting your time. And I think to your point about what is it that I can do for you to do your job better is probably the best starting question that I could have to make those more relevant for them.
Great.
Thank you, John. Yeah.
There was a saying I heard the other day. It was everything is already said, but not by everyone.
Oh.
So everyone has to say the same. Yes.
And so we've got some other things on the board here in the high value but low engagement when, if my manager in a one-on-one only wants to know what I'm doing, not how I'm doing, or the meeting's not interesting, or it's not part of something I'm really passionate about, there's low executive buy-in. Open, wide open, creative, and outcome always different than what I thought it would be, creates less engagement, feels stressful. Some of the things that get us in the high category, there's high accountability for agency and decision-making. Update meetings are the core of the work to achieve my goal. Group calls can be fun and build community. My responsibilities after the meeting are clear. Feel like I'm in the zone. There's cool ideas. There's progress. Leads to positive change. I get a sense of what's happening, what's hot. I understand the picture around what I need to do. So yeah. So what you can get a sense, well, let me ask this question. So when you look at this chart, just what do you think about when you look at this chart with the various things in the different quadrants?
I think there's just something in the top right that shows up that there's something that we're doing something together. We have an agreed upon, whether it's said out loud or not, we have an agreed upon outcome. And so there's a purpose for our time together. And I love that leads to change, that positive change, that there's a positive energy to it.
Also, the fact that there's progress that is made in that same quadrant. If there's nothing that you're moving toward, then the stagnation probably is pushing down or making it not feel like a valuable use of time.
Yeah. Okay.
From my point of view, what is critical in the meeting, and in fact, at the end, most of the meeting should be like that, is just about being clear at the end of the meeting about what has to be done. And two, leaving the meeting with the willingness to do what has to be done.
Leaving the meeting, Louis, you said?
With the willingness to do what has
Yes.
to be done, a sort of
Yeah.
commitment. So that's it.
Yeah. The commitment is clear. Yeah.
So and people have the willingness, the energy, or I don't know, in French we say envie. So they want to do what has been defined.
Okay.
It's critical.
Yeah, that's a great clarification.
Yeah.
So, well, one of the things that we realized as we were going through this, that oftentimes with people in the meeting, if we were to map this kind of engagement versus value out, it might be different for the people who are leading the meeting versus the people who are participating in the meeting. So we think it could be, what we're proposing here is it could be helpful to have people just have this conversation when they're having meetings. Where would people rate this meeting for themselves in terms of their engagement and value, right? Make sure I understand, particularly if I'm leading the meeting, where am I about this meeting? And and then have some way to find out where the participants in the meeting are, right? Because that's so helpful, because I may go into some meetings, even as a leader of a meeting, that might be really high value for me and I'm ready, but not high value for the participants, and vice versa. A meeting that I'm supposed to lead, I may not find real value in, and so I may not be really, if I don't find a lot of value in it, that's going to influence how clear I am about setting up the objectives and the ground rules and what the outcomes need to be. But it might be generating great value for the participants. So as an example of that is in one of my roles, I transitioned to a new manager, and I had been having weekly one-on-ones with my previous manager. I really like that, weekly or consistent regular one-on-ones to check in. But the new manager that I was moved to started off his first meeting with me and said, I don't do one-on-ones. If you need help with something, reach out to me. And I was like, whoa. So he didn't find value in one-on-ones, and even though I did, he had already, he wouldn't even put them on his calendar on a regular basis. So he didn't find value at it. He wouldn't even set them up. But it was something I found value in. So we think there's potential value in being able to have this conversation about where I am as the leader going into meetings, and recognizing that where the people who are invited to this meeting or who participate, where they might be. And so when we think about that, we end up with some different options, right? And we've shown some different options here. Yeah. Was there a comment?
Well, I'm curious because Because, like in the example that you gave, the leader who didn't find value in that meeting didn't lead it. Right? He canceled them. He just didn't have them.
Yes.
So I'm wondering how many examples we all have of a meeting where we were in charge of it and we didn't believe it was valuable. Because that tends to be like the meeting leader blind spot, research wise, is like one of the fundamental mindset problems is that. So I'm curious, like, can we come up with examples of meetings where I was in charge and I thought it was a terrible idea to be having the meeting and I did it anyway?
I don't think maybe we don't find for us we are people who are interested in leading meetings well. We are interested in good meetings, but maybe we have seen other meetings in the organization of leaders that make the meeting because they're supposed to, and it's expected from them to lead that meeting, but they don't find valuable the meeting they're leading. So maybe not us, but something that we have seen. But the question is also for the others. What do you think?
For example, just because I was a part of a team, I am a part of a team, and have now had to lead this team after 2 colleagues left the organization. And because of my position on the executive team, I was basically the next person in charge. So it's what we call our anti-racism team, or our DEI team. And while that actual subject matter is very, very high value for me, I know the politics and the red tape and the barriers to pushing that forward. And I remember explicitly stating to my colleague before he left, like, I do not want to lead this team because I do not know how valuable that executive leaders will, like, how high their value is. Or I know that they'll keep pushing back. And so it's really hard. It was a really tough thing, but I also didn't want to abandon the people who had such a passion for it. So I continue to lead the team, but it's a real tough push because I find value in it, but I know that it's not received well. So it's kind of this tug of war that happens. I continue to lead the team in knowing that because of my position, it's really important for me to lead it because other people would not, don't feel empowered to do so. But at the same time, there are meetings that don't get pushed along because there's not a lot of buy-in from the.
Just while we're on the topic, it reminds me of disciplinary, like, or whatever, like there are meetings that you need to have, but they're stressful.
Yes.
Whether you don't have buy-in or because you have to have a conversation that you don't really want to have and you don't think you should have to have, but you kind of have to have it. Mm-hmm. I can see those. Anyway, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it's a great question. Elise, thanks for asking. And I will just add in there too, one of the things that we talked about here was like sometimes the leader, like Danae's example, and thank you for that, Danae, that was a great example, where you've chosen to continue to lead it and and there are some challenges related to that, but there are situations where leaders will just cancel and not have meetings without even thinking about what the potential value is for the people that were in that meeting. And that's part of what we're trying to address here, that it shouldn't just be the leader, like the leader's a mindset not valuable, so they cancel it and they're missing some data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's
Go
right.
ahead, Marta.
Okay,
Yeah,
if I
so
may,
yes.
one remark, if I may, if I'm leading a meeting, whatever it is, if in the first minute I have the feeling that people are not with me, then probably I will ask immediately, okay, what do you expect from I have the feeling that you are not very engaged, that you're not very excited having this meeting. Okay, what should I do to make this meeting relevant? So the question, if I got it correctly, the question from Elise is good, but at the end, as soon as a meeting starts, any leader should be in a position to challenge immediately the meeting in the case where people would not be engaged. That's the
Yeah.
views for me.
Yeah, that's right. The leader should assess in the certain way what's the readiness and the engagement of the participants of the meeting. Yeah, that's
Yes.
what we were proposing here, that in some way there's an assessment to see how the participants feel about the meeting. So we were considering different combinations of this mindset of the leader versus or together with the mindset of the participants. So we were thinking if we have the participants and the leader with low valuable appreciation and but readiness for participation. So we think what would be in this case, it's maybe a meeting just for connection, not for results. What it would be, and if the leader and the participants were here, then we're probably on the right track. What would happen if they were in this quadrant here, that the leader and the participants have high value but low readiness to participate? Then maybe we have to address a better enrollment for the meeting. And if everyone feels low about readiness of for participation and value in the meeting, then maybe we can just reset, reevaluate, or reimagine the meeting. So we were thinking then of many different possibilities and combinations of this assessment. If we have, for instance, the leader finds very valuable and is ready to participate, but everybody doesn't find this valuable, that's the case that Luis was talking about. So talk about it at the beginning, what is expected from this meeting. So we were thinking, what could be done in this case? We can address at the beginning.
From my point of view, as soon as you start a meeting, you should start by telling people, this is what I want to achieve. This is the way I want to achieve it. Are you with me or not? Do you agree? Is that clear? Do I have to add more to clarify what we are about to do and the way we'll do it? And for me, it's always followed by an open question. Is that okay for everyone? Any comment, any idea?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, the question is relevant, but I repeat what I just said before. As soon as the meeting starts, in my mindset, you need to align everyone immediately about what is about to happen.
Yeah, and I think, Louis, that's a good practice. And in my experience working in organizations and now consulting with organizations, a lot of people just step right into meetings like, oh, this is the daily, weekly meeting, and they just get started, and the leaders or nobody in the meeting is assessing that. I've not seen that happen in a lot of cases. And so I think that's something that can be done. We also have here, Marta, if you could release all of these, maybe people could do some brainstorming on the different options about things that could be done, because we were looking at
That's
like what
right.
happens, if the leader's in one place and the participants in others. Of course, it could be all over the place. If you have a meeting that has a lot of people in it and you had people identify where they were, there's probably opportunities for some meetings to look at what's the how do they increase the value and engagement all around the board? Because if you had like 10 people in a meeting, you'd probably have 10 stickies all over the board.
That's right. So maybe we can do some brainstorming right now. And here we have the board's measures to be taken. And maybe you can write a couple of ideas for the different combinations of mindsets for the leaders and the participants. Should we do it like that?
Yeah, have people brainstorm on sticky notes.
Yeah,
And at least to your,
So-
go
which
ahead.
frame are we on right now?
Are they
So
all the
we-
same? They all look the same.
They look the same, but they're not the same. They look the same, but the leader and the participants are set in different quadrants.
Ah, okay.
So we're looking at this combination of this situation. How would it be? What should be done, or what can we done, or what do we observe here, or it's difficult to figure out because we cannot imagine that can't happen. So for these different combinations, what would be good measures to be taken at these meetings? We have here the case of the leader having a high value and high engagement and the participants not. Here we would have the participants finding a high readiness for participation, but the leader not, and finding low value in every case. So there can be other combinations. We can just if you think you have other interesting combinations that you have already observed, then feel free to we can adapt this and make more of this, and you can place them wherever you think it could be interesting to observe and to think about it. So on the right hand, you have a small frame, and there you can put your stickies.
What thoughts you have about helping the leaders? And in this case, we've just identified a single participant. And the different ways they might be not aligned. And Elise, if you have an idea about that top left quadrant as connection, you know, so we put that with a question mark, definitely open to some suggestions there.
I don't have a better idea, but
But note
Yeah.
that connection can be high value. Yep.
yeah, and it was on the
Absolutely.
high value quadrant or high readiness, but low value. And I was like, well,
Yes.
you know.
All right. So take a couple of minutes to see if you find any idea.
And if you just want to talk out loud about the different situations, that's good too.
Yes.
And what we really wanted to really look at here is the value of really at early on is the value of assessing this. And Lewis has addressed this around the beginning of the meeting, talking about what the objectives are, what we're trying to do, how we're going to do it. But we really wanted to hone in on this part, like how are we doing that? How are we make sure that's happening in the meetings we are in or with the clients that we're working on? Are people even taking a moment to assess that and checking, is there alignment? And if there's not, recognizing what the misalignment is, and then having the conversation about how we could create more alignment, where we might need to look at what the value is or the engagement, what is missing for people, or what would create more engagement or more value for people so that they have the conversation. Which is really what was driving a lot of our Marta's and I conversations about this is how do we even do this assessment? Like I have to know where I'm at if I'm leading the meeting, but I also have to know where my participants are. So we're curious after having looked at this like simple like 2x2 grid and looking at the different things that cause that have people like be in different quadrants of this and looking at some ideas. What thoughts are you having just around the whole assessment process? And checking for alignment. Thinking about what drives participants, right? Control, purpose, learning. Because agency is part of that control. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I feel is that people don't have a lot of time, and just kind of just level setting, like, is this too much time? Or can we get this done in a really quick way? By just addressing just the key points and pushing off anything that is just less important. Just so that if people are really like in a grown zone and just do not want to engage, you can just get whatever you need initially, and then just say, we'll hold off on other things until people have more time or just feel less pressure.
And I always felt like I needed to have times on my agendas. And so I took them off, and it made it worse because people were crunched for time. They're like, how long is this going to last? What are we going to do in this? So being really transparent about how much time we're going to use to do whatever. And if this is all we need to do, then we're going to not meet for an hour. We're going to meet for a half an hour, whatever. But I thought I was doing everybody a favor by creating this flexibility. Well, it just raised the stress level.
All right.
Mhm. What are some ways that y'all have used to assess like people's level of engagement and perceived value in a meeting?
I mean, I have a general kind of exit ticket kind of space. It's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it, right? So I can kind of do some sort of graphic, how was this useful? And then whatever comments, just some time to be able to connect and be able to say, okay, what's required of us now based upon this meeting? And so we can say both collectively, this is what we need to do, or individually, this is what I need to do. And that it kind of depends upon what the content of the meeting is. If
Yeah.
it's a decision, it might be, what additional questions do you have? Or if it's a really complex, we've just dumped a whole bunch of new information on people. Like what do you need next to be clear about what the implications for you on this might be? So I can gauge, do I need to check in with people individually? So I either get an individual check-in or some sort of group check-in.
Mhm. So you're kind of doing it at the end of the meeting in terms of prepping for the next meeting or being set up appropriately for the next meeting. Yeah.
But if I may, at the end of the meeting, there are I would say two types of questions. The ones which are related to the content. Was that clear? Did we achieve? And then something about the process. What do you think about the way we drove this meeting? What should we do differently next time? And I think there is a lot of value of asking people in the two areas.
Yep, that makes sense. Mhm.
And what is very common, when you ask people, what do you think about the meeting? So it's a very large question. Some of people will answer about the content, the result, and others will comment about the process. And there is a lot of value of catching who is where, in fact, in the way they react
Mhm.
to the question.
Mhm.
Yep.
But in my
Distinguishing
practice,
that is helpful.
in my practice, 10% of any meeting should be dedicated to this.
Mhm. Oh, and I see that, John, TEA, thoughts, emotions, actions. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Marta and I also talked about some ways that you could potentially assess on some meetings. If you look at like just the volume of meetings that some people are in some of the organizations I work with, people are in meetings like nonstop all day, right? Some are scheduled, some are not scheduled because things come up in production that need attention, and they're so busy, like they're not even thinking about meetings. And so when I think about this, like they're not even really thinking about meeting value or engagement. They're just kind of going through the motions. And so while I think like sometimes I think about this grid, it seems like kind of simplistic, but for a lot of the people I'm working with, just to take a few minutes and like plot this out for one or two of their meetings could have huge implications and get a sense for what's working well and what's not working well in this meeting. I had a group the other day say, they just now, because we were doing some work, we had stepped out of the busyness of the day and we were working through some other stuff, but they said, oh, we just realized we have all these people in the meeting so we can talk about short-term urgent things and long-term things. But we really could repurpose those meetings because the people that are there that need the short-term information don't need the long-term information, and vice versa. But they had never thought about like separating out the audience and targeting the content until they were out of the day-to-day busyness.
Mhm.
But they decided right there, oh gosh, we could get a lot more value out of this meeting and I could be more engaged, right? If we just made these changes to this meeting.
And Eileen, I have principals that come to my calls because they want to get out of that day to day. Like they're
Okay,
structured in a way that lets them decompress and connect with other principals, school principals. And so they're coming to them. There's information and we're making decisions. We're doing all the stuff we would normally do, but we've structured them in a way to help them decompress.
Oh, great. They need that, like stepping out of it.
They've got to get away from, they got to shut the door of their office and just have a laugh with their colleagues in other buildings.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sometimes we don't get anything done, by the way.
But it might be that like just that decompressing, right? Like I just need to say, get this off my chest for today, right? And maybe that's the real value for them in that meeting. So, yeah.
So
I know we're getting close to our time here. Go ahead, Marta.
Just wrapping up what we have talked about today, what we have done. This is, we're coming to the end, to the last 3 minutes. So we have seen, we have started with the types of meetings that we have and how we assess these meetings in our level of engagement and readiness, the value that we see in these meetings and our readiness for participation. And then we have talked about this change and this comparison between the mindset of the leaders and the mindset of the participants, and we have been thinking about a couple of combinations and with measures and ideas to do in these cases. And we have come to the end of this meeting. Yes.
And yeah, so if you so thank you for participating, and if you have some thoughts or feedback for us, that would be really appreciated.
That's right.
And Lise has put and she has put a link in the chat for a more formal feedback form that they have, but also if you wanted to give us any feedback right here, right now, that would be okay too.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much, both of you, for leading us through all of this. Kind of an interesting exploration to play with the realization that everybody has different mindsets within the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's another set of questions to play with, which is mindsets regarding meetings, period. All right. The thing that keeps leaders from, like, we've got all of these ideas that they could use should they wish to address these different mindset combinations. But there's that step where you go, hey, wait a second. I'm going to take my meetings seriously and address these these issues. Like that mindset gap is a really interesting mindset gap as well. So fun to look at.
Yeah, I agree, Elise. And I would say too that I think like this tool could be helpful. Like if participants felt like they, just when they think about meetings, like here's how this could be helpful in that too. If people were willing to even have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a son that I might share with some of you. He works for a company now, and he's not a meeting person. He does not like meetings. And he had a lot of meetings on his calendar, and literally he stopped participating in meetings. He goes, these are not valuable for him. I don't need to be here. I'm not contributing to these. I don't need this information to be effective in my job. He actually just stopped attending meetings. And then eventually he got dropped from the distribution list. And but it was like a really interesting, like, the whole dynamic there, like nobody was even paying attention, right? Is he here? At some point he got dropped from the list, but nobody was even questioning, hey, but I didn't see you at this meeting, and the conversation never happened. And yeah. And
That's
if somebody
wild.
thought it was important to be there, that's another conversation to have. But go ahead.
No, it's wild. It's an interesting choice because it can be, liberating for your time, but also career limiting.
Yes, it can be.
If you're not present where leaders can hear that you add value, that makes it challenging.
It hasn't turned out to be career limiting for him at this point, but I thought it was very interesting just how the whole thing played out for him. So, yeah. Well, thank you all for sharing your time with us today.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
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 Where is the stop button? There it is.